Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you how I created this art journal page. I'm going to make a page for my ring bound journal. This journal is 8¼ inches square and I just cut a piece of watercolour paper and down so that it's 8¼ inches square from an A4 size, and then I give them a coat of gesso ready for when I want to use it. I only use one side of the page because I like to write what I use on the back of each page. You'll find videos for most of these pages in my journal on my YouTube channel if you'd like to have a look at any of them. I'll put a link in the description box below to my art journal playlist if you want to check that out. As I said earlier, this page has had a coat of gesso, but it probably didn't need to have. I'm going to use this old sewing pattern for the background. It's going to add a lot of texture because as I apply it using my gloss gel medium, I make sure that I put lots and lots of wrinkles into the paper. I apply a coat of the gel medium on top of my sewing pattern paper so that all of those creases are stuck in place, and when I apply my next layer of paint or whatever, they're not going to move about. When my gel medium is dry, I take my scissors and trim around the edges. I don't want the colour of the sewing patterns to be visible, so I'm giving the whole background a coat of gesso to tone that colour down. I didn't really have a plan when I started this page of what I was going to do, but I knew that I wanted to have a bright coloured background and a light coloured foreground. So I started off with some acrylic paint. This is a sunshine yellow, and I give this whole background a coat of that, and I'll add my other colours on top of it. The next colour I added was once again a Duncan acrylic paint, and it's called Citrus Orange. I just dripped some of the orange paint onto the background. I'm doing this while it's still wet so that I get a nice blend. The final colour that I added was called Christmas Red, and I used the same technique to apply that as I did for the other paints. Now that my background is dry, I've decided to add a bit of stamping to the back to it. I'm using my jet black Stays On ink and this background stamp, and I'm just stamping it well all over the page actually, but because the texture of the sewing pattern paper is so rough, very little of the black ink is getting onto the page, and it's only getting onto the higher sections, so that gives me a nice effect. I wanted to add a bit of a metallic look, so I'm using some metallic acrylic paint and a stiff brush, and I'm just going to dry brush over the top of my background so that the paint, which is called polished copper, only really catches on the top section of the background, so all the risen parts of that sewing pattern paper. This colour is not really all that noticeable, but it does give you a nice metallic sheen when you move your paper about. wanted to put some splatters in the background, so I selected my Duncan Liquid Pearls golden white acrylic paint. So this has got a metallic to it, and I watered that down slightly and used my fan brush to splatter the background. I decided to use circles as my focal point, so I've used my Spellbinder's standard circle small and cut some various sizes of circles from some white cardstock. I also gave these circles a coat of gesso. I wanted a bit more darkness in the background, so I used some black acrylic paint. I watered that down slightly and used a empty toilet roll to create some circles randomly in the background. I let some of these circles overlap each other and overlap the edges of the page. As I said earlier, I wanted my background to be darker and my feature points to be a lighter colour, so I'm going to use these Jane Davenport watercolours in the palette's called Bright Palette, and I'm going to just use a soft flat brush to apply some of these watercolours to the circles. I'm going to try and concentrate the darker colour to the outside and the lighter colour to the inside of the circle. Each circle will only be one colour. I won't be mixing the colours on each circle. I play around with the amount of colour and the amount of water until I get the consistency that I want. I used my Matisse matte medium to apply or to attach my circles to my layout. I put the medium behind the circle and on top of each circle. Actually, I give the whole page a coat of the matte medium once I've finished adding all the circles. I'm overlapping the circles to the edge, and I'm overlapping circles with each other, and a few of the circles are actually freestanding as well. Once I've got all of my circles attached, I set that aside to dry. Once it was dry, I used my scissors to cut the overhanging circles off. I had planned on using my Pitt big brush markers to shade around each of the circles, but because the background was so textured, it didn't really work the way I wanted it to. So now I'm going to take my Faber-Castell Big Pen Pitt marker, and I'm just going to draw a sketchy type of border around each of my circles. I'm not going to be too fussy here. I don't want to be exactly on the edge. I'm just making a scribbly sort of circle around it so that each one of those circles will stand out from the others. Next, I'm going to take my zig marker, which has got a very fine tip, and I'm just going to create some more scribbly circles sort of inside of that outline that I've just done with the bit wider tip. I'm going to use my Stabilo All pencil in black to shade behind each of the circles. I'll draw a line with my pencil, and then I'll use a wet brush to smudge that line out to help with the shading and making the circles look like they're actually attached to the page. To create a border around my page, I have used my food ball pen to draw two parallel lines around the outside of the page. I'm going to make this into a checkered border, so I didn't go all that straight right there, but never mind. So I go around there twice with my food ball pen, making a double line. Once I had my double line around my page, I used my fine line bottles that I keep some acrylic paint in. I have a black and a white, and I've watered the paint down slightly so that it can come out of that fine point, and I'm using those to create a checkered border around my page. I wanted to add a bit more white to the background of my page, so I used my white acrylic paint and watered a bit down and used the same toilet roll, empty toilet roll cardboard to create some white circles in the background, the same as the black ones. I'm going to use my Dilutions paint pens to add a little bit more colour to the outer edges of each of the circles. To do this, I'm just going to make scribbly lines in a circular motion over the darker colour. For the purple, I'm using the crushed grape. For the yellow, I used lemon zest. For the blue, I used Calypso Tulle. For the green, I used Dirty Martini. And for the pink, I used Funky Fuchsia. The quote for this page comes from the internet, and it was actually from George Clooney. It says, "You never really learn much hearing yourself speak," and I'm a firm believer in that, so I've printed that out on my computer, cut it into strips, and I'm using my matte medium to attach it to my page. And once it is attached and the matte medium is dry, I'm going to use the black acrylic watered down paint from my fine line bottle and put a border all around it. So that completes my layout for today. There will be some close-ups coming up very soon. If you've enjoyed my video, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel, and if you click the bell next to the subscribe button, you'll be notified when I upload my next video. Thank you.